Something that I say along the way will touch you. I know it. Let's begin that process of crafting a meaningful life.
Here's Mary Crafts.
Good morning and welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I'm your host, Mary Crafts, and I have a fabulous guest for you today. She's been on before, but it's been a long time. In fact, I don't even think we had video when she was on before, and now you'll get to see how fabulous she looked like. Okay. I am in St. George, Utah today because it's the Huntsman Senior Games, and I'm not in the games, but John is, and he's down here with his softball tournament league. And I have to shout, this is pretty fun. I went yesterday, and they won both their games yesterday. In fact, I'm so inspired, not that I ever want to play softball, but I want to get good enough at pickleball that next year, at age 71, I could be down here like just bang, bang. This is the goal, okay? It's the goal. It's, what can you say? So you excuse my small Airbnb bedroom behind me, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to come to you and share Roya with you. So let's just tell people a little bit about you and kind of what's going on in your life.
Oh, the journey. I think I'll start with the moment that I call the end of one book and the beginning of another. I found myself in August of 2020 sitting in the middle of a rented townhome, stained up carpet, boxes all around me, just leaving a marriage of 22 years. We were separated at that point for a year, but it was undercover because we were trying to make it work. And we were in a 7,500 square foot house. So I was sleeping on the top floor and he was on the bottom. And by May of 2020, and we were separated in July, I couldn't feel anything, Mary. I couldn't feel my face. I couldn't feel my vagina. I couldn't feel anything. And I've been seeing a neurologist for over a year trying to figure out what's going on. She was about to send me to a Mayo clinic. And I was like, I think I knew because I was trying to stay so hard, so long. And I've been on this desire to heal my marriage since 2008. And then I was super struggling since 2015. And then I got into all this deep work. And so when my body tagged out, I finally moved out. So here I am in August of 2020. And my feelings started to come back, by the way. So it was
in the middle of COVID.
In the middle of COVID, and my body is going numb, and we don't have anywhere to really go. And so I would stay with my brother a couple nights a week. He would stay with his sibling. And then my feelings started to come back, and I thought, okay, I've got to go. And so I'm in the beginning of August, and this townhouse is not what I was used to. And I'm a renter now, and the boxes are all around me, and I get a email, actually, an atomic bomb essentially hit my business. And it was approaching the anniversary of my mom's death for 1 year. So we're talking about a move, a death, a divorce, and a destruction in your business, and COVID. And I did that kind of cry, Mary. I crawled up the stairs. I flopped on the box spring and mattress that were still on the floor. And it was that kind of cry that's so deep that no noise comes out. That kind. And the next morning, the grace of other human beings reminding you that you're enough is something that is underrated. I think when you see someone suffering, and instead of bearing down with them, just to remind them, hey, let me give you perspective of why you're enough. And in that, just a couple of people, support voices, I went, you know what? The message came clear, and it was, from ash is fertile soil. From ash is fertile soil. And so for any of your listeners that feel like you're buried, it's ash. And we know that God destroys the universe, the earth, whatever you call it, your higher power, powers that be. We burn forests to regrow. And I needed not just a new chapter, but a new book. And so this is where the journey began, deeper.
It kind of reminds me, Roya, of, I mean, I'm so glad you were able to recognize all those things and that, whoa, I'm just not like some crazy person, but I've got a lot going on. Because sometimes you can't recognize that. You just think you are like not enough and everybody else is handling their life but you. And the thing that, if I had a magic wand, the thing that I would wish for people is that their life would be like when they have forest fires that are set purposefully by the Forest Service. And it's what they call the controlled burn.
Yes.
And that we have a controlled burn where we burn it down and then can rebuild it. But most of the time, we get a wildfire through our life. And we just have to like deal with it.
Yeah.
And so you were able to recognize them and to able to step out.
Well, I think there's signs along the way that if we can avoid the wildfire, maybe we should. However, I think all of it is on purpose. All of it's the way it's supposed to be. But we receive whispers. Then we get taps on the shoulder. And then we get boulders. And so if we refuse to listen to the whispers or the taps, there will be a boulder at some point. Now, here's the interesting thing as I've gotten into deep work myself and now with clients, we buck against these egregious moments of our life. And what we're actually incidentally bucking against is the invitation for the expansion. And what we try to do so often is resist it. And then we shrink and we reconform and configure ourselves to adapt to wherever we think we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to say and whom we're supposed to please and where we're supposed to be going. And instead, lean in and get curious. The first step to all of this is curiosity. What else could be true here?
We have a real tunnel vision when it comes to ourselves, I think, that we would see ourselves in this kind of mindset. We can see everyone else like this.
Yeah.
but not ourselves. And to be able to open that width, just see life as
I think it's an invitation then of outside perspective because blind spots are blind spots. So I had to get outside perspective. I tried to just keep growing my business and go and grow business more. This was another era that I look back on is that, okay, I was like, okay, let me work on financial stuff more. Let me work on business branding. And I didn't take enough time to go, okay, I am with me no matter where I go. You are with you no matter where you go. And so when you heal the root cause of it, of the block, of the shrinking, of the suffering, of the, discontent, maybe it's just a discontent, then everything else gets to get into alignment. And so I find people just patching things. I was patching things. I was patching it in business. Maybe we patch it in. Let me upgrade my body. I'm going to go, get to this body percentage fat. But there's all that. There's a root cause, and that avoidance continues the cycle. I will tell you what happened in deep meditation to kind of give a framework. And then, yes, I would love to talk about meditation because meditation was something I resisted for years and something that has been the key point of all the openings and the expansion that has happened since then. So I wasn't a great meditator at the time in 2020. I resisted it. I had a friend that kept tapping my shoulder for a year and a half, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll try. And I would do I did the priming. So there's different layers and types of meditation, and none of them are wrong. So if one doesn't work for you, try a different one. There's active meditations also. So I tried transcendental meditation, TMs, very popular, and it wasn't for me. I didn't feel connected to God in the way that I like to. And some people have a really hard time quieting their mind, and some people love it. So we tried TM in the pandemic. I took my children. We took the course. Then before that, I did Tony Robbins priming. It's a 15 minutes, a very active meditation. It's with gratitude and visualization and so forth. And you get a guidance the whole time. And then I tried just silence. And sometimes that works for me in nature. I need to be in nature for that one. And then the one that I seem to love the most is one with Joe Dispenza, where it's guided. And I'll tell you about that because that's where I've jumped to. But I was sitting in this space. I play a certain song. So I've done almost 1,000 hours of in-person workshops. And it all started with Tony Robbins, actually. I became a platinum partner. I was a plat with him, which means I did all of his things plus the private things for a year, 600 hours of work. And he would play this certain song when we would do deep writing. And so that song for me triggers me into a space of connection. So sitting in connection, just in despair. It is now 2021. And all of a sudden just dropped into my consciousness this global message that I'm going to share with you and your audience today, Mary, and about the life cycle of change. And actually I've been called to write a book for it, which is now my primary focus to do next. So the life cycle of change is an answer to self-permission and for acceptance of other people's changes and messiness. So if you think of change as the life cycle of life, where it begins with birth to death, the first is first of all, when we're suffering, we're in a death cycle somewhere. When we're in discontent, low level, we're in a life cycle of death. Death is made for shedding, but you can look around to a lot of people, and all of us can be in some area in our life in death where we're not in the right place in our body, we're not in the right place in our spiritual walk, we're not in the right place in our money, we're not in the right place in our relationship with self or others. So there's a cycle of life, and in each space is, where are you? You want to analyze, where are you? So the place of discontent or discomfort or despair is death cycle. And it's an invitation for shedding. Well, what do? So the first place in life is birth. So here we are in childlike wide-eyed wonder. In childlike wide-eyed wonder, that is the first step to getting out of the death cycle. That's called getting curious. They have no filters. You look at a child and everything is, wow, what is that? There's no judgment on it. There's just curiosity. So if you are in some stuck point, I invite you to start with childlike wide-eyed wonder. Peek behind curtains you didn't. Have conversations you never had. Search things you've never searched before. Listen to podcasts that are new for you. Attend a workshop. Get an outside perspective. Okay, so here's childlike wide-eyed wonder. Now what comes next? This is the one we're going to avoid very heavily, and that is adolescence. Messy adolescence. You don't recognize yourself. You overdo things. You underdo things. You don't know if you're on the right path. Other people are confused by you. It is messy. And this is why we avoid the change. And Mary, when we met, I was going through a process of my own messy adolescence. And I will tell you, I still trip into those places. Because here's the cool thing. When you're in messy adolescence, you're alive. You're no longer a part of the Walking Dead. You're starting the journey of expansion instead of cocooning. Always make the decision on expansion over shrinking. When we go backwards, when we stay stuck, we're in shrink. This is like a cocoon, like a butterfly that never expands its wings in whatever.
So many people say it and express it that way. They say things like, oh, I just can't wait to get back to, like when we were in COVID, people say, I can't wait to get back to normal. Well, honey, we ain't never going back, just so you know. We are never going back. Or like, I just can't wait to be happy again. You're not ever going back to that happiness. You're going forward to a new happiness, a new place. And people would just be able to shed layers much quicker if they would realize it's not a matter of reclaiming. It's a matter of,
rediscovering. Yes. Rediscovering, expanding, adding the layers instead of going back to the old ones. Yeah. So after messy adolescence is adulthood. purposeful adulthood. Now you have kind of uncovered what's more in alignment and authentic to who you are in this moment, in that area of your life. And you begin to execute and practice something purposefully that you have discovered that feels in alignment to you. Purposeful adulthood. And right around the corner from purposeful adulthood is maturity. This is the space of it is you. It always has been you. You feel embodied in it. So from adulthood is maturity. And so the next space, of course, is death again. And you might go very quickly in some areas of your life, continuing that cycle. The invitation is to have some self-love, to go, okay, I'm not going to be a part of the walking dead in this part of my life anymore. I am going to be willing now to go through messy adolescence because it is purposeful. And I'm going to be willing to watch somebody in their messy adolescence and give them grace. Like, at least you're fully alive. At least you're in expansion instead of shrinking. The messy space is the space of aliveness. And we don't want to stay there. But I invite you to go there with the understanding that it is a gift, that it is an invitation, and that it allows you to uncover the next most authentic version of you. Now, some people think, well, then, is that selfish of me? And I think one of the most selfless things you can do is to be authentically aligned, and then to invite and appreciate the people around you for wherever they are. Because people can feel when you're out of alignment. And we think that it is a gift to assimilate to what you feel like that they need. In the end, everybody suffers in some way.
You know, I think that that's an old, kind of an old Puritan viewpoint. For example, I grew up in a very religious home. And it was thought of by my mother that if we ever said anything positive about ourselves, was that we were not humble.
Oh, yeah.
We were not, giving credit to God.
Yeah.
And she never would compliment us on anything because she didn't want us to be conceited. It was about us and everything was about God. Now, I understand the concept of giving, grace to God and all that He provides. But there's a whole different thing when you believe that it's narcissistic to claim how wonderful you are.
Yeah, if you're a creation of the Creator, then why would you shun yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting dance. I would say that let's give an example of humility with something that's seems selfish, like, okay, I had a 22-year marriage and you're looking for the outcome that looks right on paper, that, oh, now we worked it all out and we're together again. And when I work with my clients, I don't look for a certain outcome. I would not wish divorce on anyone. I lost my mother and it is worse than death, losing somebody.
I remember that year.
Yeah, it's just tearing at the fibers. And although it was something that I struggled with, it was something I ultimately realized, especially when my body tagged out, that it was a necessary thing, but it's still so difficult with small children, etc. It was a whole undertaking, and it continues to be. So here's what I would say. So when I work with my clients, I work with the fact of, like, we're going to find the most authentic version of you, honoring self. And whatever aligns with that is the right thing. Because if we go with just an outcome in mind, we could be stuffing and shrinking all these parts of yourself that are being invited by something greater than our own consciousness to understand. Now, having said that, what Noah and I did, he said, I don't know how to treat you anymore during this process. And I said, why don't we just have one baseline, and that's default to kindness. And so you can be expansive and kind. You can honor yourself and be kind. You can love somebody in a different way. When I held my son for 3 hours straight. He was crying and begging me, please come back, Mama, please don't do this. And I had not even left the house yet. He just found out that we were separated and we were still in the home together. And it was the moment I was trying to avoid for years. And finally I said to him, and this is something that I had said to myself, and perhaps this would help you that's listening, and it's, I don't know what your language is. I call God, and I said, God doesn't promise that everything's going to be perfect. God doesn't bring the worm to the bird. The bird has to go get the worm. Why? Because the bird has to expand and fly, right? And that's how the worm discovers its greatness. So when we're given these things, your job is to find the treasure. I called it a treasure for him. For me, I said it's to find the gift, right? What is the gift in the good, bad, and the ugly, and the indifferent? That is the invitation. When we find the gift, and you might not find it right away, baby, I told him. You might not find it right away. When you find it, you grab hold of it and you give it back to yourself. This is what God asks you to. Grab all of the gifts, find the gift, and give it back to yourself. So we started looking for treasures in this process. Like, where's the treasure? There's one. There's a treasure. And sometimes we couldn't find it then. And there's no pressure on that. This is where we start to judge every moment. And it's this space of like acceptance. When you look at the energetic scale, I don't know if you've ever seen Hawkins' energetic scale of emotions. So for those of you that are not familiar with it, we all have vibrations, and quantum physics has determined that energy is neither created nor destroyed, and energy has emotion. You can feel love, you can feel hate, etc. So it has a vibrational output, right? So when you're being inauthentic, you're actually having a very low vibrational output, which is why we keep grabbing things that are frustrating you, upsetting you, etc. So in that scale, it shows that even above desire, there's a huge jump when you just get to acceptance in the energetic scale. And then right above acceptance is love and peace and all the highest, right? So in this space of acceptance of whatever it is, you finally make the leap. And just on the other side is that peace and that bliss spot. Mm-hmm.
I think being aware of those vibrations is such a gift, and it's a skill we can all learn. But sometimes, because now that word, what are your vibrations, has become such a point word that when we say, oh, that's low vibration, people do the roll your eyes kind of a thing, well, yeah, I know what you're talking about. But it really is a matter of letting go of what we've been told and stepping into our own reading vibrations. I think about how I feel inside as a person when I raise my voice, when my heartbeat starts beating faster, and I can feel like there's something in my throat, and and the vibration is slow and heavy. But when I have shifted and I can step into that love space, when I can pull out my love and pull it outside and share it, my vibration level is just, I feel comfortable. I feel beautiful. I feel like I have so much to give. And being able to tune into that is a real gift. Any tips, Roya, on getting people to be able to tune into their vibration as well as the vibration of others?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. Some of you were built to feel it automatically, and some of you are very built to not, to have a more closed system. So first of all, whatever you're built for is right. So there are some people that are built to plow through, Mary, and not feel it as much. So some of my clients are very, very in tune energetically, and some of my clients have to have assistance to tap into spaces that they've either never given themselves permission to have, or has been a subconscious fear to be there, or they're just wired to execute and get into the world a different way. Now, I will say that I'm thinking of a particular gentleman that was very, very rigid, unable to feel much of anything. And it became a detriment in his long-term marriage. He's been married 30 some years, but his wife feels very disconnected and very alone in their marriage, which there can be. And so he's wanting to tap more into his own sense of understanding, his feeling things. And so if you're one of those people that has a really hard time feeling a vibration, we started with something that sounds really, really simple, but he literally does, he's like, what? Put my feet in the earth? But yeah, he takes his socks off and he puts his feet in the earth every day, and he breathes the air. And I just ask him to feel the earth under his feet. And if he can, watch the sunrise or the sunset, even better. So it sounds like kind of a tree hugger thing, but this is grounds him into his body, because he works so much in his mind that his body is beginning to sense things that it never did before. So start with feet in the earth. If you're in a place that's very cold, it's going into winter now, for example, you can still walk outside in your boots and you can put your hands on something. Put your hands on the ground, put your hands on a tree, put your hands on something of nature, not a building, of nature, so that you can feel that. Just to pay attention to the textures, pay attention to the temperature, pay attention to the sounds around you. Why am I saying that? Feeling vibration is also feminine energy, Mary. And so we talk about masculine and feminine. Well, we both have both. What is the purpose of it? What does it matter? Well, part of it is when you're getting into manifestation, when you're getting into invitation of things that are outside of your own control, when you're talking about accidentally repelling people, having an attunement to that emotional energy is that feminine guidance within you. And so we need both. And feminine is a presence. So when you pay attention to all five senses, you're dropping into that feminine energy, which actually, believe it or not, prayer has a lot of feminine energy to it. So somebody that prays often can be, if you do it where you're dropping in, you're in a feminine energy space. It's a balancing. We're supposed to have light and dark. We're supposed to have hot and cold. You're supposed to have masculine and feminine. I was in masculine, burning out that freaking cylinder for decades. High achieving women, we can be in that space, and it is so out of alignment with our physiology that's why we're experiencing more than ever adrenal fatigue, cancers that were not there before, heart failures, autoimmune diseases. I work with very high achieving women to help them drop into their senses also.
I think that probably if I could say this within this year, the single thing that has been the most beneficial to me is learning to ground in the earth every single day. And I live in Utah, so yes, we're getting cold. And in the morning I go out and it's about 40 degrees out there.
You're committed.
But it's crazy because the moment I take my slippers off, and we don't have snow yet, but I step on the grass, John is always like, aren't you freezing? I'm like, no.
Wow.
My feet are not cold, and I have cold feet.
Wow.
But they're not cold because there's so much vibration there. And you're right, your hands every morning, all summer, and now in the fall is even more important to literally squat down and put those hands.
Yeah.
And to feel that and allow that vibration. It is incredible. The first time I felt that kind of vibration was like, oh, I'm onto something.
Yeah, you can feel it. And even this man who is completely disconnected was like, I really like this foot thing, And what ends up happening to those of you that are not like ready to I just want to feel the earth. I want to feel the vibration. You end up actually increasing your leadership capacity. You end up increasing your ability to invite money as abundance vibration into your life. And you end up having connections with people that, whether they're employees or people that are intimate partners with you, in ways that heighten your experience and theirs, that just expands your world.
So do you think, Roya, in terms of, I know you've done a lot of work with generational kind of things. Yeah. Do you think people come with different vibrations, or do they come with the same vibration as they entered this world?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes. So what you're alluding to, Mary, is our conversation we had about the work that I'm most passionate about now, which is helping partner with people to break patterns that no longer serve them. Mm-hmm. And this pattern breaking has layers. And the one that you're talking about is one that is passed to you generationally, has nothing to do with, or not as much to do with how you're raised, although typically you're raised through that lineage. And so there are patterns that are passed through their DNA as well. And so there have been lots of studies on DNA passing. And so science has shown that this is a reality, and logically it makes sense. How are we going to avoid, certain illnesses and not cut ourselves and touch fire? Because this has been passed through for survival. Yeah. And so, there was a study, for example, with rats, and these rats were coming upon, pomegranate seeds. And unfortunately, the scientists shocked the rats so badly when they would just come upon this pomegranate seed so badly that it would pass out or die. Okay. Now, guess how many generations deep? Actually, I've asked you before, but so how many generations deep these lab rats reacted the same way, never being touched. When coming upon this pomegranate seed, they would run away squealing, pass out, or even die sometimes just coming upon the pomegranate seed.
Because their parents had come upon a pomegranate seed. And the genetic code was set. I know enough about genetic to know. I know enough about genetic code to know that can be embedded for generations. I don't know how many generations.
They found it to be 7 generations deep. 7.
Wow.
So when you're working on something and you keep bucking against yourself over and over and over again, and you cannot even have any recollection, no matter what deep work you do, to find that root cause, it is a generational passing. It's in your DNA. So this is why I'm so thrilled about the work we've been doing, because we're bypassing 20 to 30 years of therapy for people in one session to 3 months. We are working with people that are, just in a space of self-destruction, whether it's in their body or in their finances or in their relationships or in their spiritual walk. They have the cognitive desire. So there's a difference between wanting and being, right? So you might want to have $1 million. You might want to have a phenomenally connected relationship. You might want to have a tight fit body. And all of this began because I have mentored thousands of women for over 20 years in business. And I kept seeing, I have the best training. We have the best opportunity. We have all these things. We have the product, etc. But they keep bucking against themselves. And I would buck against myself sometimes too. Well, why can't we break through? And so I started with what we all start with, or those of us that are achievers, which was affirmations. And, that does help. When you go into the mirror and you go so close and you speak to your pupil where your soul lives with something that is preconditioned, it's memorized, that's beyond your own words. Because when you're getting off track, you cannot trust your own voice at that point. So you have to grab something, whether it's a song, a Bible verse, an affirmation, and you can go to the mirror and you can begin to rewire those neural pathways. Absolutely. I've had huge jumps in business. In fact, I'm in the 0.001% I found out in the world, in the title that I'm in the company that I also represent. However, and so I had to buck against myself many times. So this rewiring can happen in that way. So this, though, is the first, it's the cognitive. Here we are. Our brain knows we want a difference. Yeah. Then when the affirmations, it starts to create new neural pathways in the brain. However, there is this thing inside of you, and that's called the 95%. This is the 5% cognitive. There's the 95% that is the subconscious. This is the nervous system. This is where also the DNA lives, right? This is the don't know. So if you think of a glacier, you see the top that you know and all this underneath the ocean that you don't know. We're talking about, we'll call it don't know land. So in all of my affirmations and my confirmations, etc., there came a point in my career that I made more than I ever thought I would make. And then I ended up unconsciously sabotaging myself. For me, it was in my savings account, forget about, all my investments and so forth. My savings account, I had $100,000 in my cash at disposal. And that's the most I ever thought I would ever have, right? And then all of a sudden it goes away. Like literally like all reasons you would think, but it went away. And I had this coach and she uncovered for me, she's like, Roya, you're an achiever. An achiever always has to have space to achieve. And once you meet your subconscious deserve level for that achievement, you can only surpass it for so long. Your subconscious will course correct to the identity you have, which is an achiever, to give you room to achieve again. And so this is where the roller coaster begins in people's bodies, in people's monies, in people's relationships. They have, then they don't. They have, then they don't. You're bucking against your subconscious deserve level, your wiring. So this is where we have to connect now into the somatic work. The somatic is telling the body a new story. It's great work for trauma. And trauma, I thought, was just like, some major event, but trauma comes in all kinds of subtle layers. It's from coming too soon, too fast, and that's unknown to you, and it can bury into that subconscious, and we have to give it a new meaning. Now, so then I work with a cognitive. Now we just talked about the somatic, the body, and then we can still get stuck. And this is where you're talking about in the DNA passing. So now in the work that I do, it's with the energetic space also, the soul part where the DNA is that's passed. So when I help a client drop into their body, we do the somatic work, and it does not do an instant change because it did not happen in their lifetime. Now we've got to go into generations. And Mary, it is effective, it's efficient, and it's permanent, and it blows my mind every time. I just feel like I'm just a witness to that. When I witness that, I don't understand exactly how it works. I just know that it does because it's continued to show up again and again and again. And I just thank God for being a conduit. I feel like I'm just a filter to accessing that point. And that part did not occur in my life to help people with that until deep meditation happened. And now you can be told, well, you can cure everything in deep meditation. And while I think that deep meditation does an incredible job, and it is underrated to be able to connect to something bigger than yourself that literally can alter your cellular structure. I went through a cellular change, honestly. When all of the deep meditation started, and then something accessed in me, and now I can help with this DNA passing. However, everyone has different gifts. And so when we talked about blind spots, it doesn't matter if you meditate, unless you're granted the download of what it is, it's almost like we go with the cognitive. Okay. I hear what you know. Then we pause and we see what your body knows. It's like going in with a flashlight into your cave. And we go, oh, did you see that spot? I need someone to see the spots too. We all have those blind spots. So partnering with somebody to go into that blind spot and pause in it, and then let the nervous system do its job and get to the root cause of the base memory. Because once you understand the root, it no longer owns you. And then if you can't find that root, you need someone to be able to go into the energetic DNA space. And I'm going to caution your audience because there's a lot of people that think they can do it. If you don't see and feel results, they're not doing it. when it happens, it happens. It's like, dang, what was that?
So, Roya, is this something like, for example, with your clients that you can do across distances, or do you need to be face to face?
Yeah, that's what blows my freaking mind, Mary. You can do it on the phone. I remember listening to those 1-800 call a psychic and be like, yeah, whatever. And not that I believe that all psychics are real, because there's a lot of fakes in that too. But yes, so when this first got activated in me, I might have lost some of your audience now because this is very out of the box. But when this first got activated, my friend he goes, let's see if you can do your woo-woo work on the phone. And so he's in Texas and I'm in Virginia. And so I was like, I don't know. Let's just see what God wants to do here. And I open a very sacred, by the way, it's very sacred. It's very sealed. It's very covered in protection. And this was a practice, right? This was a couple years ago. And all of a sudden, Mary, I'm on the phone with him. And I'm like, okay. It's like you see out of the peripheral. So this was not a DNA passing. This was the first time it was in his lifetime. But it's like I see out of my peripheral a silent movie. And I can tell the date timeline by the stuff around. Okay. And then when I pass into generations is because the stuff is different looking. So anyway, this child is playing on a grass field, and I describe the hair. I'm like, it's a boy playing football, I think, but he has longer hair. It looks like Farrah Fawcett hair. And he goes, oh my gosh, that's my hair at that age. And then I describe him going into the back door, describe the back door. I describe the old refrigerator. I opened it. I see the glass bottles inside with the soda bottles that are glass. And then he walks into a room. I was like, on this side is a cushioned plaid chair, like a, those bigger chairs that you sit in. And there's an old man, and he's holding a crystal tumbler. And I cannot tell if he's an alcoholic, but he has some dark alcoholic drink in there, and he loves it. He's nursing it. Well, that was his grandparents' refrigerator, back kitchen, the living room, the plaid chair, the crystal glass that his grandmother would serve him bourbon every evening at 5 p.m. And
Wow.
when we saw that, I was like, I have no idea what is happening. But now, Mary, I don't question it. It's like, it's not me. So I just want to be very clear. We all have gifts. It is like an invitation to bring this gift to help when we cannot get out of our own way, to allow you to have raised your hand. Here's how I see the people that come to me. You're a giant spirit. Before you came into your earth body, you raised your hand and you said, I am willing to break the generational cycles. I am willing to be the key, because quantum physics has shown that time is actually parallel. So when you heal yourself, you are healing before and after you. And that stuff, just like, I can't even cognitively understand it all. But all I know is that you are a giant spirit and you raise your hand. And when you come to someone like me, you're going, I am ready to break that generational cycle. And then I'm just a channel, and it happens. And it is, I just thank God for the witnessing.
Yeah. I am a firm believer in generational healing because I've experienced it myself. And I remember when I finally saw my mother as something other than this critical mother who I was never good enough for, and realizing that that had been her life. And then reaching into my grandmother and saw that that had been her life. And into my great-grandfather, grandmother, and that had been her life. That when I was able to forgive my mother, then she was able to forgive hers and hers. And I could ask my daughter to forgive me. And then to have that generation going forward healed, and to feel this oneness of womanhood, of understanding what another has passed through.
Yeah.
It was like I opened a door and turned a key to walk into, I am not just Mary Crafts. I am not just here in this moment in time, but I am all of these women. And they all are in me. And they were so happy when I stepped into healing and allowed the passageway to be opened for them. It's such a great gift that you have, Roya. And I really think that if people are stuck in seeing therapists or counselors and they've been doing that and there's no progress, I love this psychiatrist that says, well, this will be about an 8-year
Yeah.
process. I'm like, oh, please.
Nobody got time
And
for
it'll
that.
cost you
Yeah.
about $200,000. And you can't even comprehend that.
No.
But there are so many wonderful avenues to use now.
Yes.
And we're going to include your link at the end of this podcast so people can come and find you and experience that kind of healing through the generations. We don't have to be rats just reacting to pomegranate seeds.
Yes.
We can actually be making a choice. I know my grandmother didn't like those pomegranate seeds, but
Yeah.
have you tried one? I mean, seriously.
Yeah. And what you just brought us full circle, Mary, in that you talked about the deep work that you did and you got so authentically aligned. We're talking about authentic alignment and what a gift that is. And that's what you did. You got so authentically aligned that you affected all these relationships around you and you healed all these relationships around you. And when we conform and when we hide, when we lie to even ourselves, this healing never gets to happen. And I've watched your life expand tremendously. You already had this big, full life. Now you have this joyous life of peace also with your prosperity. And it's so beautiful. And that began with you getting authentically aligned with you and allowing the generations to be to be pulled in along with that. And as a disclaimer too, sometimes they don't want to, and that's okay too. We have to know that we are all here to allow each of us to be exactly where we choose and are supposed to be. And some people are supposed to be in the space of the 3D exclusively. They're supposed to be in that space, and it is authentic to where they need to be right now. And so there is no judgment on any space or place that somebody is. There is judgment only to self. And so if we can just take everything and just take it as is and go into the acceptance and get curious and then decide, am I one that's willing to raise my hand for myself? And then if others come along, that's so beautiful. I've done my soul work. The real work is soul work. That's really what we're here for. All the rest is the tangibles.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, all my listeners, I have mainly ladies, but I have a few gentlemen. That's why I always like to make sure I include them. Raise your hand. Raise your hand for yourself. Raise your hand that I want to understand at a deeper level. I want to heal so many things that I haven't understood before. One of the things, Roya, that I wondered for the longest time is if I had been sexually molested as a child. And I've come to realize that most everybody wonders that, and do they just not remember it? I wondered it for a long time. And when I went through this generational healing, I realized I hadn't ever had that happen to me in this life, but somewhere in my generations.
Wow, and it had been passed to you because you were in the womb of your mother and your mother was in the womb of her mother, and you receive all of that because your egg is inside of them.
7 generations.
Amazing.
And so it was such a wonderful thing for me to be able to release that fear I'd had and that wonder. Why can't I remember this? Because it didn't happen.
That is such a great exclamation point to what we've been talking about. Yeah, so if you feel stuck in your body, you feel like you can't access the body that you know is yours, if you feel like you can't access the relationship, whether you're in one or seeking one, if you feel like you can't hold on or have the money that you're seeking, if you feel like sexually you're repressed, you don't understand self in that realm. I know it sounds like, oh, suddenly she just said sexuality. This is a very important piece. We have to understand on all the layers. And most of us women, speaking of the women, in relationship are conforming themselves to whomever their partner is, or they're muting their voice, or they've never uncovered who they are authentically in their own body when nobody else is judging or speaking to them. And so we help you drop into that also. I'm not a sex therapist, but what I am is I help you break your patterns. I help you access the fullness and the truth of you. And I do have different course on that specifically as well, which was so funny. My girlfriend twisted my arm for it once upon a time because her marriage was so changed from a conversation we had. And so it's something that I don't typically advertise, but if you raise your hand, you ask about it, I do have that for you, because I think as a woman, especially men too, it's a very important space. So actually my clients are equal men and women, and there are a lot of men I work with in sexuality, self-acceptance and self-love and alignment and authenticity for that. There's no shame in this space. There's just curiosity. Yeah.
Roya, you have been a delight. I appreciate your friendship, that we have grown together across the miles, the times you visited Utah, and I've been able to connect with you. And most of all, today, I'm appreciating the opening the door for my listeners and allowing them to look in to what could possibly be the next step for them in understanding. You know, I've always said to people, I plan on living to be 105, and even if I don't, every day is going to bring to me a new awareness, a new step. And that's how I craft my meaningful life. Roya, thank you for being here today. And I'll look forward to when either I'm in DC or you're in Utah again.
You've got to come for my birthday party. I'm having my 5-0 in December. I'm about to send you an invitation.
Oh my gosh, yes. Send me an invitation. I would love to come. Yes.
I have a gift for your audience, and that is they want to go to www.callwithroya. I'm going to offer a free discovery call conversation, and normally that is $7.95, but your audience, if they put your name in the notes, I'm going to give it as a gift to them. So callwithroya.com. Yeah.
That is huge. Thank you so much, Roya. I love that. Thank you. All right, my friend, I love you. And to all of you out there, let's make your Post-it note this week that you're going to look at that said, what is the unknown that is now ready to be known? Namaste.
Crafting a meaningful life.